what we must all think of is that even if we are able to put things on the net and share content, it also shows the great divide whether people have access to 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. That question of accessibility to the internet also will divide many people. That's one thing. And the other thing is that every endeavor that with my team that we have kind of increased or bumped up, I keep telling them we must think of which part of those new engagement do we keep moving forward, so that it doesn't become like, oh, we did it because of COVID and then we're going to drop it. And you have to be careful about what is necessary to, sorry, somebody's calling me. So what is necessary to keep and what is useful for moving forward, and what will we no longer do. So to be open, to be also transformed in our ways of working and our ways of communicating with our audience. And then the other thing that we must all think about, which is the not so happy thing, is that according to everyone else, when we go back to normal, we might have to step back into the non-normal. This wave is not a one-time thing. The fall or next January might be bad again, and we might have to understand that we need to go back internally. So I think that it is being honest about what you put out there, pacing yourself, and then thinking of what is necessary to keep after, and how do you allow this to transform your institution for the long term.
Well, we don't know plainly, but one thing for sure, it's not just about virtual digital reproduction
Mm-hmm.
of bodily works, but instead, how can we help bodies meet? I think the bodily, the material presence of works of art are so important. Okay, we can't wire smell, for example,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we can make a lot with sound.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about, mostly what's always going on online has like a scopophilic, a pornographic nature, too visual. And I think sound is a great field to explore in this occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Ears don't have eyelids. And listening is not just isolated to ears. We hear with all the body.
Mm-hmm.
We are touched by sound. In a way, we are not by images. I am thinking this paradigm when I'm thinking today about connecting, how virtual media can connect points, can connect bodies. I remember Donna Haraway. She says, we are always somewhere, not anywhere. So I mean connecting, not just about reproduction. And I think sound as an indexical media, a physical trace.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know much about these issues by now, but that's we are in right now.
Oh no, that's amazing because I had to reschedule 2 exhibitions because the artists needed to travel to the Arctic of Canada and they couldn't because of COVID. And it's interesting that you talk about sound because one of the choices I've made is to invite a sound artist to do an exhibition, because suddenly I thought, oh my God, this relationship between the space and the sound was so something that I was missing also, because during this pandemic, a lot of our, people have even mentioned that, you hear the birds, the environment, if you're outside of your house, like we are able, and I know it's not the same for you guys, but we're able to walk around, there is this relationship to the space and to the sound. And it's so interesting what you've been saying, as like a physical choice, of what is sound, and that our whole body feels sound in a different way than just looking at things. So I think it's you've really touched on something that that connects with like what for me was just not an abstract choice, but a choice that I made. But suddenly what you've just said gives it like much more, it grounds it into this conversation of COVID in a certain sense,
Yes, certainly. One of the projects we opened recently is Radio Caso. The Caso is the Sound Art Center.
Okay.
Centro de Arte Sonoro, Caso.
Okay.
Sound Art Center, and a radio Caso. That is going alive from last Friday. And we are working also in a kind of sound map or sound archive with the National Direction of Museums and Institutes. So it's really challenging. I'm glad about that. I think Sound Art Center, the Caso, and the Argentinian sound map has no definitive title by now, but we are working on it, are 2 important projects we can share and think about links and bridges between we all. And well, this for sure by now. Besides, we are working in a big exhibition, a big project about relationships between human and non-humans. We are in the middle of that.
I'm always interested in this question of how the world is populated, or how we inhabit land. And I would say that one thing that has been done differently, because our countries are different, but that we share, is this questions of indigeneity and who was on the land before it became Canada, before it became Argentina, and all these questions of the empire's project, the hidden, colonization, erasure of population who were both in Canada and Argentina, right? Like different times, different ways, but same project. I think these are also interesting questions, things that we share because of the histories of the countries. They've been dealt with in different ways, which is totally normal. But those are interesting intersections to talk about, what does it mean to be from Argentina, or what does it mean to be Canadian, if we think of the populations that were there before, or the populations who are constantly being supposedly erased, you know, and at depending on what this imperialistic project was, who was more successful at erasing a presence than another, and how has that shifted the you know, the national conversation in each country. And I always think that in this time when, you know, people talk about decolonizing museums, decolonizing institutions, that this question of, and for me, I lived in Paris for 8 years, and one of my very good friends was from Argentina, and she would always tell me, oh, in Argentina, there's no cultural diversity. Everybody is, you know, either of Spanish descent or of Italian descent. That's it. And I was like, really? You know, somebody tells you that, that's what you keep in your mind. Mind you, you know, this was in the early 90s. But it's interesting through conversations with Claudia to realize that that question of indigeneity is, you know, it is part of the make of Argentina, maybe not at the same level as in Canada, because maybe you were more successful at getting rid of them and erasing them, which, you know, then because the imperialist project was built as such to totally erase these people. And so I think these are questions that, these are, you know, very different questions, but that still unite us in terms of how we can be having conversations about these things. And the other thing that has become important to me is I've always loved museums. And now I work in an institution that is a non-collecting museum. And suddenly I find myself, you know, really understanding that when you run a museum, you're also kind of the voice of that imperialistic project of, you know, erasing a population, taking their objects, placing them in a context, creating a new category, and giving yourself meaning the institution, the state, whoever has the power, giving yourself the power to talk about a group of others in your own terms. And so I find that this is a very, these are again, you know, questions that we can share and we can exchange on, and looking at how our institutions are dealing with these questions in very different ways, but how unpacking those questions will be beneficial to everyone that's around the table, whether it's the artists, the institution, the audiences, and it gives us a better understanding of who we are, you know, and what we share in terms of the atrocities that we all share, you know.